Legal, regulations, compliance, and investigations, Domain 10. In the domain synopsis, some of the key focal points in this domain, we need to be familiar with the concepts and internationally accepted legal methods and processes. In recent years, for very valid reasons, there's no longer a requirement to be a walking expert, at least in the context of preparing for CISSP, to be familiar with specific laws of specific countries. We need to be familiar in general about crime legislation and different types of regulations, how crimes are investigated, how evidence is gathered and analyzed, different types of ethics and laws. A lot of that was covered in our first domain in the area of information security concepts. Also reminders about liability, due care, and due diligence. Always a very important consideration, especially in the private sector. How do we address compliance? How do we go about making sure that the organization is in good stead legally? What are laws applicable to crime? What are ones that outrightly prohibit different types of computer crime? What are methods to determine if a crime actually has been committed and how that affects the evidence, and how investigation procedures such as forensics have to be conducted? For our agenda in this domain, we have to be familiar with the different systems of law around the world. We'll also look at some of the Western world law systems, which many of us are affected by. We want to take a brief look at regulatory compliance. Privacy, especially in recent years, has become a paramount topic. That's one of our big four in terms of how we're trying to protect the organization's assets, individual privacy, the legal position, and the public image of the organization. So in terms of missions, in regards to our agenda here, we're definitely trying to protect the legal position of the organization. What type of liabilities can an organization encounter? What are some of the information technology laws and regulations, at least conceptually? What are the different ways that a computer can be associated with the crime process? And also we're going to look at some more attacks that we have to be concerned with. How do we gather evidence, and how do we avoid, if you will, blowing the case? As we always do throughout the course, at the end of the module, we'll take a look at those key topics you have to be intimately familiar with for the exam, and also we'll give you an opportunity to test your mastery of the topics with some practice questions. First of all, on behalf of Security University and Ken Cutler Associates, I want to make it perfectly clear that the information presented in this module is for awareness and professional certification knowledge. It's not to be construed in any way, shape, or form as official legal advice. So if you get pulled into court and you say, well, Ken Cutler in the Security University CISSP program said this, well, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not Ken Cutler, ESQ, nor any of the other principals of this organization. So this is here in terms of important knowledge you need to be familiar with to attain a CISSP, but Security University is not a legal firm. Let's look at the major international systems of law. First of all, let's look at civil law systems. These are based on pre-written laws, not on precedent. They're different from the civil laws that we'll discuss later, which works under a common law system. And where would you find civil law systems? Well, you could go back to the Roman Empire. Remember old Hail Caesar when we talk about cryptography? Also in France and in Spain. The common law system reflects the legal environment that was created and pushed forward by the British Empire. So remember, they used to make the statement that the sun never set on the British Empire. Is former members of the British Empire all practice, for the most part, with few exceptions, if there's some type of religious override, if you will, the common law system. And the common law system is comprised of civil, criminal, and administrative laws. And this is often based on previous interpretation of laws or of incidents that establish precedent, as compared to the civil law system where everything is totally driven by pre-written laws. So you might consider a common law system to be dynamic and is adjusted by different occurrences within the courtrooms and decisions by different judges and juries. As I mentioned, the common law system goes back to England and the United Kingdom. So surprise, surprise, where would we find examples in today's world of common law? United States of America, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia.